today's noontime talk. My name's Mel. I'm the curator here that works with our decorative arts and design collection, i.e. the suite of galleries here. And we're here today to focus on a newly installed and newly acquired work here at the museum. This incredible chair. I might gush a little bit because I love it so much, but this incredible chair and companion table by Joyce Lin, who's an artist who works just down the interstate in Houston, Texas. But to kind of back up a bit, I thought I'd frame this conversation today with a little bit about how works come into the museum collection and why this one is incredibly interesting to me for that way. A lot of objects, I'd say the vast majority of objects, come to a public art collection like this through gifts. So generosity of collectors and patrons of the museum that want to share their love of art with the public. An example, these three platters on the wall. The museum's director emeritus, John Bullard, is passionate about American studio ceramics, so we have an incredible gift of his collection here. But other times, curators using art acquisition funds get to make choices, or i.e. buy artwork for the collection. There's a big process for that, but some examples here might be this chair by Alessandro Mendini. Maybe a certain kind of art collector might have this chair sitting around their house, but often, this kind of bold postmodern furniture is not necessarily something you can count on coming into a collection by gift. But it was a big gap in our collections, we were able to buy that. But now I'm coming around to what I consider the most exciting, or at least as a curator and a museum professional, way to bring art into the collection. And that's when you get to work with an artist, like we did with Joyce Lynn, commissioning a specific piece of work for the collection. So I'm saying, hi everyone, welcome to the gallery talk. We do have a bit more room if you want to kind of move in or even slide over. I don't want anyone to have to feel like they're not here able to see the artwork. So just to introduce a little more by commissioning, that means this piece of artwork existed in the artist's mind for the New Orleans Museum of Art, responding to our collection, responding to things she saw here on view, and responding to kind of the New Orleans environment. For me, working with this design and decorative arts collection, this is the third of 4 commissioned projects. We have one going on that I can't tell you about quite yet because it's still a work in progress. But this was number 3. Another of the earlier ones is on view. The Roberto Lugo works. If you kind of go over here and take a right, the 3 vases sitting on pediments. The center one is like a tank. So Roberto Lugo is looking at our collection. Frankly, looking at our 19th century ceramics collection, which can be a little bit problematic in its narrow view of what history was in the 19th century. So he's a Puerto Rican artist working in Philadelphia that's working with museums to kind of complicate that history. So his work celebrates New Orleans music culture through his icons of Louis Armstrong and Lil Wayne. So that was an example of one commission, working with an artist to look at our collection, to think about gaps, to think about narrative gaps and what they could contribute through their work. And then we come to Joyce Lynn. So Joyce Lynn, again, I guess a bit of biography. She was born in the South. She was raised in Birmingham, Alabama, and then she went to school at a dual degree program at Brown University and the Rhode Island School of Design. I'm mentioning that because you can almost see it in this chair, like kind of the 2 sides of her artist brain. One, furniture design, how to make things in a very beautiful way. But at Brown, she was studying geology and biology, so very interested in science, nature, and earth. So really prestigious degree, kind of both, if you want, sides of the brain that as she embarks on her career, you really see coming out in her work. So now she came to Houston, so she's working there in Houston. She's teaching woodworking classes at the, to get the name right, the East End Makers Hub in Houston. But really she's has a flourishing new design and art career. I'm hoping you'll start to hear her name. We really think she has an enormously deep talent in both her skills, but like how she takes abstract ideas about the world and makes them come out in objects like this. So for this project, we invited Joyce to come here to New Orleans, spend time in the collections, and while she was here, she saw the Dawn Didot exhibition downstairs. So Dawn Didot was a capstone of her 50-plus year career working as a New Orleans multimedia artist. And Dawn Didot, kind of like Joyce Lynn, has deep interest in climate change, social unrest, and she looks to the future with a sense of she makes really stunningly gorgeous artwork. So it's this kind of like finding beauty in the worst parts of human destruction, for instance. So Joyce Lynn saw that, and kind of that was a starting point of inspiration. And then Joyce Lynn spent time, she became interested in like the ecological history here in New Orleans, which really aren't forests at all. These are kind of the desolate lands that used to be verdant forests full of cypress trees, but with the incursion of ocean water or salty seawater, the salt water comes up through the roots of the trees and they die, leaving these desolate forests that are now becoming part of the sea. So when talking about Joyce, and we do have, if you wanted to follow the QR code, an artist interview and video with her where she tells all of these things from her own words. But Joyce Lynn, quotes the U.S. Geological Society, statistic that here in Louisiana we're losing about a football field size of land every 100 minutes to the rising seawater. So like Dawn DeJoe and Joyce Lynn, we're looking to this future, like what will change, and their roles are artists, so making works like this that are visually captivating to kind of bring awareness to concerns like this through their art. So she's here, and she starts the work of making this chair by literally gathering up found driftwood, and it's not just a pile of driftwood, like she's a furniture maker. So she's layering onto that another piece of art she saw here at NOMA. This, you can see kind of the burnt outline of a chair in the back, the so-called ladder back chair. So we have a ladder back, specifically a 19th century Louisiana ladder back on view in another gallery that she's referencing here. But in her words, she kind of amps it up. She makes it more like a throne. So she's playing with this really complicated idea that like furniture holds memories and is always kind of connected back to the land. And I'm going to turn to Joyce's words here because she says it far more eloquently than I would. And to say her own words, she says she's fascinated by the creative and destructive capabilities of mankind. She's often jumping back and forth between materials that are considered natural, like wood, but then other of her work will be with styrofoam and plastics, or materials, in her words, that are heavily engineered. But she says, as much as we try to create objects that last, in the end, everything succumbs to forces of time and physics beyond our control. Ghostwood, that's the name of the chair, Ghostwood is a reminder of this inevitability. It's an object that's shaped by water, desaturated by sun, darkened by fire, and becomes a shadowy form of previously existing furniture. Again, more poetic than I could be, but I love to say that she's finding this material, reassembling it, referring to other forms of furniture, and it both making a statement about ecology of now and in the future, but weaving in concerns that have always been here with us by looking at this historical form of furniture. Let's see, what else? So the kind of this process of working with her, like, it's really fascinating to me because you get to have these conversations with the artists all along. So like my job as curator, instead of me having to guess what an artist might have been thinking, we get to talk to Joyce. We get to create video content with her. We even get, steps along the way, like what an honor it was, like, midway in the project, her to be sending drawings like this, of like, this is kind of what I'm thinking about. Do you think this would resonate? And then, me sitting on my computer just squealing with delight because it's just so beautiful to be part of that process.